What's up guys, welcome back to Let's Play Fate Extella. We're moving on with yet another side story, and this time we're playing as the series cash cow herself, Artoria, formerly known as Saber, the most commonly known character in all of Type Moon. Everybody loves her, she's everyone's waifu, or at least she was at a time, I'm sure. So we're going to be going through her side story, so a couple things you need to know before you go into this. First of all, she is unlockable. She has to be unlocked through certain conditions. If you guys want to know how to unlock her, please watch the Xseed official YouTube channel video on how to unlock her. They actually had to patch the unlocking conditions for her in the English version of the game after the launch date. So if you got this game early, you would still be unlocking her under the conditions that were in the Japanese version, but after the day one patch, they were patching it to where she was much easier to unlock. And so I unlocked her while replaying through Nero's campaign to get to the point where I could play as Tamamo and begin the Let's Play on the PS4 version as I did when the game came out. I did not unlock her in the Japanese version, and credit to my friend Avani, who's one of my biggest Fate fan friends that I know, because she unlocked Artoria the hardcore way on the Japanese Vita version, so props to her for that, and I wish I could have done that, but honestly it's not worth the effort to unlock her that way in the Japanese version. If you have access to both versions, unlock her in English. Nobody could really decide what the true conditions were like to unlock her in the Japanese version. It was so convoluted, but that's just because the Japanese version was just that hardcore. But obviously everybody knows this character, so and she's there basically to help sell the game, so why would you make her so difficult to unlock? So to talk about her involvement in the story, it's not terribly impressive. So she gets involved between a fight between Ku and Medusa here, two servants she respectively fought in Fate Stay Night in the Fate route. And, of course, these are the opposing factions of Nero and Tamamo, and she's the interloper that crashed their party, to quote Archer from the Illuminable Blade Works movie. So, again, she's here for pretty much the similar purpose that Iskander and Jeanne d'Arc are here for. She's just here to observe and basically fuck up Altera's shit. And she does a terrible job of that, as we never see her in the main campaign. So again, her reason for being here is pretty much the game pretty much pulled out of their ass and said, yeah, Artoria's here, take it or leave it. But again, she really doesn't have any significant bearing on the story. And the other downside is, so the good thing is, she plays pretty awesomely. It's a little bit finicky to get used to at first, compared to what you would think. She actually does not play like Nero at all. But the downside is, her campaign is very short. In fact, you'll be seeing all of it in this one video, and this video will be a lot shorter than the majority of even some of the single segments of a very large campaign in the main story. This is going to be even shorter than that. I'm used to be able to doing like 25-30 minute videos. This is going to be much shorter than that because her side story is just so short. But you can use her in basically in instant action mode, free play mode, to fight anyone you want on any stage. You can continue to use her just for fun. I really feel like they had a challenge with trying to write her into the story, and that's why they made her side story so underwhelming. But it's basically a boss gauntlet, and the first boss, obviously, we're having to fight Medusa and Cuchulainn at the same time, and she is a lot more powerful than them, obviously, so she'll be able to wipe the floor with them pretty easily, as she would do in canon, of course. Ku is a pretty good match for her, as we saw in Fate Stay Night, but depending on her master and how much mana she has access to, she could easily defeat Ku, and her high magic resistance and luck allowed her to resist the fatal blow from Gay Bolg in the Fate route, and in Illuminable Blade Works route as well, when Ku used it against. This is at the very beginning of the visual novel, when Ku used it against her. So anyway, let's talk about Artoria from a story standpoint. So again, everybody should know this, but this is the basic semantics, the basic fundamentals in case you're not familiar with the character. So, she's most commonly known as Saber because Shiro referred to her as Saber in Fate Stay Night, referred to her as her class because he didn't know her true heroic identity for the longest time. She's none other than the King of Knights, King Arthur. And in Type Moon's continuity, King Arthur is obviously gender bent into a woman, so Arthur becomes Artoria. It's sort of a play up on words there. The interesting thing about that is, depending on the adaptation that you're watching, okay, first of all, I want to buy some level ups. So now, already our bond level with Artoria is very high because I deliberately had her as my one of my bonds throughout the entirety of the main campaign. You probably saw me gaining levels for her, so we should be able to equip a nice amount of secondary abilities on her. And the reason why I did that is she would not be a direct supporting role in any of the actual side stories, so I kind of had to pick and choose there. So there's actually a couple different things I'm looking through the Mystic Codes right now that I can buy, but I don't think I need to buy anymore. I think I pretty much have everything I could ask for. Anyway, so again, Artoria. So in Fate Stay Night, she is given to Shiro Emiya as his servant, and she is significantly hindered by his ineptitude, and unfortunately was not really able to do a whole lot to her full potential, and just basically barely managed to get through by the edge of her teeth. You later find out that she had previously been under the command of Shiro's adopted father Kiritsugu in the 4th Holy Grail War, which is the story of Fate Zero. So again, she ties into basically all the major works. There's a event in Grand Order for Camelot that basically lets the other Knights of the Round Table and Merlin actually get some development. So pretty much all of the knights are servants now. Like, we've already seen Gawain. Tristan is there now. Who else? Oh, Lancelot, obviously. So, but again, there's not nearly enough time of day in this video to even scratch the surface of the amount of things that she does, the amount of powers she has, and the amount of influence she has on not only the story of Fate Stay Night, but the Type Moon universe as a whole. But I'll talk about a few things that are particularly noteworthy for me. Some of the things that I really latched onto with this character, some of the things I found particularly endearing, because she is one of my favorite characters in all of anime. And she is still, you know, a waifu to me, one of many, because Type Moon is so full of them. I'm reassigning some of my bonds here to some characters I intend to play as in their side stories, so I can kind of further unlock some more abilities. For Riku already has a pretty high level, so I might not even bother with him. I might go ahead with Archimedes there, because I plan to play as him. Anyway, so, couple things. So, when I first watched Fate Stay Night, I had it spoiled for me that she was King Arthur, but I understand that that is a bit of that's a reveal. Like, people, if you're watching the Dean anime, or if you're playing the visual novel blind, you may not even realize that she's King Arthur at first, so it's supposed to be some big reveal. But it's interesting when you watch Fate Zero, and it's established before she's even summoned in the first episode, and all the heroic spirits' identities are established in advance. And you already kind of know who they are going in. It kind of adds a whole new dynamic. You know, in Fate Stay Night's story, it was more like, okay, you don't know your enemy. It's a mystery. It's sort of, you know, playing a game of chance when you encounter a new opponent. But in Fate Zero, it's more like you know your enemy, so how can you be tactical and cunning and assess your threat and assess the proper strategy for taking them out? And that was very much a theme with Fate Zero, because everybody knew who each other's servants were, and they knew who was the master of each servant, so it was a mind game, a very careful game of chess the whole time. So again, we'll talk a little bit about Saber's powers, and I'll come back to that. So Saber has a couple of interesting abilities. If you dash and hit triangle, you thrust forward with her sword. Her sword appears to be invisible. That's an ability called Invisible Air that cloaks her sword, because her sword is so legendary. By revealing it, it would automatically reveal who she is. Like, everybody would just be able to guess Excalibur. Speaking of which, we're going to go ahead and use Artoria's Noble Phantasm and annihilate Tamamo with it. She's about to unleash the miracle she holds in her hands. Every dream from every hero that's ever lived, embodied in one sword. So anyway, when she reveals it, it's sort of at full power. The Invisible Air has a couple of other unique traits, like she can actually thrust out like a beam of energy from the sword when she thrusts it forward using the Invisible Air. That's one of her special moves in Fate Unlimited Codes. And then obviously the full blast from Excalibur is it's classified as like an anti-fortress Noble Phantasm. So a weapon like Gay Bolg that's meant to take out a single target is what they call an anti-personnel Noble Phantasm that's very, 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 very good at killing one person, and that's about it. Whereas Saber's Noble Phantasm is anti-fortress, which basically means it's good at destroying an army or a large structure because it's just a big blast and nukes everything. And she's managed to rank up quite the head count of servants with it, including, spoilers, one of these guys. I won't say who. Okay, I'll shut up for this scene. Everybody knows this scene, of course. I'm so glad they recreated it here. Alright, finally time for Artoria to get her revenge on these two. So again, this is a recreation of a scene from Fate Zero. This entire, I've talked about it before, this entire sector of this map is based on it. So we managed to block Gil's Gate of Babylon there. So the three kings, the King of Knights, the King of Conquerors, and the King of Heroes, gather in this courtyard by the Einsburn Manor in Fuyuki to discuss which among them is truly grateful to, or truly worthy of obtaining the Holy Grail. And basically it's Iskander's idea of gauging the power of his opponents and their resolve, their motivation. And it's basically Iskander and Gilgamesh sort of ball-checking each other, but also being like, huh, I kind of respect you. You're kind of full of shit, and I like it. So it's a really great scene because they're basically just like, haha, we're horrible people, we're tyrants. And Artoria's like, oh, we got defeated here. That's unfortunate. Of course, we can use a command seal and be restored, which is nice. But anyway, Artoria's like, it's not what your people can do for you, it's what you can do for your people. And they both laugh at her, and they're like, no, you have it completely wrong. It is absolutely what your people can do for you. That's what being a king is all about. And so they basically chastise her and say that her heroic ideals are wrong, and that it's going to be the death of her, it's going to be the undoing of her, and that no wonder she has so much regret about her past because of the choices that she's made and how she's decided to rule. It's despicable. And so her morale is basically crushed. Not to mention she sees how powerful the two of them are, Iskander using his Noble Phantasm against the army of assassins. So what happens next? We get the river battle. And she uses Excalibur to destroy Castor, that awful Cthulhu monstrosity in the river. And again, we get that line, the line I just mentioned in the previous fight. And they are just in awe of her destructive power. And it was such a great moment for her because she's basically the underdog up until that point. And the fact that she has that comeback, that amazing comeback, I love that moment. It's one of my favorite moments in all of Type Moon is, Saber having the underdog story in Fate Zero when she's up against such a powerful competition, still comes out on top. It's really quite endearing. Anyway, so basically, her story ties into Archer's. That's why I played them in that particular order. As you can see, at that moment is when Archer would show up and defeat her, and basically she spends the rest of her time in the Moon Cell, just kind of wandering, as Archer explains in this exposition here. So she intervenes in a few fights off-screen. That's basically all she does, and it's a real shame. If you guys want to see more of Artoria, maybe in another, just a free play match against a particular other server, let me know who you want to see. I would love to play as her more and talk about her gameplay a little bit more and more about her story, but unfortunately that's all the time we have for her today, because her campaign was just that short. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, she's one of my favorite characters, and I'm glad they put her in the game, and I hope that my discussion was at least somewhat worthwhile. I do like how her and Archer tie in together, though. I thought that was a really nice touch. Look at that smirk on his face. It's like the inner Shiro in him knows. Oh, look at that. How precious. I'd like to think after the perfect ending we get in the 4th route, that this is where she goes when everything is all hunky-dory, and hangs out with the master, and just eats and pigs out, as per in character. Looks like she has no qualms with Artoria anymore either. How nice. Another one of my favorite moments regarding Artoria is in Fate's Day Night after Shiro conjures up Avalon and is able to deflect Aya from Gilgamesh, and the two of them embrace covered in blood. That's one of my favorite moments in Fate's Day Night just because of how it shows the trials and the pain they've gone through to get to this point. It's just such a powerful moment for me. And it kind of really does enforce the struggle that Saber has gone through. And it's that much more impactful when you've seen her entire arc from 0 all the way through Stay Night. And you rewatch Stay Night for a second time, or you rewatch the anime. Or, I'm sorry, reread the visual novel, rewatch the anime, and you see that scene again with a whole other perspective. It's really fantastic. It's worth noting as well that Artoria was not in Extra at all. This is her first introduction into the Extra continuity, and again, they just kind of shoehorned her in there for the sake of basically fan service, but I'm glad they did. It was fun, it was worthwhile, and fun to see her traditional anime trope of eating excessively there. So one more thing I want to show off, I'm going to go back into her screen. Every time you complete a side story, or after you complete all of the main stories and you complete the side stories, you start unlocking alternate outfits for these characters. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up where we left off with Artoria and just show off briefly her alternate outfit. So we get the closet option now after we've completed all 4 campaigns and some of the side stories. We get these alternate outfits. I'll show off the one for Saber. Look at how nice that is. Alright, you guys going to cosplay that? I'm sure there's going to be cosplays of it eventually. So, yeah, very nice. And I'll show off I'll probably buy some of the DLC outfits that I showed off in Altera's campaign, and you'll see some of those on screen too. So we already have a few for Nero, for Archer, so for the ones we've already played through and unlocked, but I just wanted to show that one off so you guys are familiar with where to find it in your navigation and what circumstances need to be met before you unlock it.